And then there were four. The NFL's Final Four starts today. The four best teams, four of the five best quarterbacks. Shout out to Deshaun Watson, who I'm sure we'll be talking about a lot after today. And I've got four of the best analysts I know. Eric Eager, VP Research and Development, lead NFL analyst Sam Monson, and lead NFL draft analyst Mike Renner. By the way, the PFF draft guide comes out tomorrow. So if you thought things ended tonight, you are sorely mistaken. The fun is just getting started. We're going to talk about both of these games. We're going to talk about them from the spread and a total perspective, get into some of the ins and outs of what will win these games, and talk about some props here. If you don't already have a PFF Elite subscription, you've got a couple of minutes left, okay? Get to pff.com, get an Elite subscription, get on the props tool, and enjoy today like it is meant to be enjoyed, because these are the perfect two games.
Yes.
Right? And we're going to start with the later game, Bills and the Chiefs. This, of course, happening at 6:30 on CBS. Mahomes and Allen. Mahomes cleared concussion protocol. The toe, still a little bit of an issue. 37 degrees, 20% chance of rain. The Chiefs, a 3-point favorite, total at 54.5. Eric, don't tell me you're not going to pick a side of this game. What's the play here in Chiefs-Bills?
I mean, I think it's Chiefs or nothing at this point. Now that it's down to 3, it was 3.5 earlier in the week. To me, when you look at these two teams, they're a carbon copy of each other. If Mahomes is healthy, and that's a big if, I think, with the toe, but also the head, I don't know if there's a place where Buffalo has a decided advantage sort of up and down the roster. So to me, it's Chiefs or nothing. But I think this game is just going to be a very up and down game where you're going to get points.
So I agree with you that the Buffalo is basically just a slightly worse version of Kansas City across the board. But I do think that Mahomes injury has the potential to flip all of that back towards Buffalo.
Which injury?
The toe.
The toe.
Forget the concussion protocol.
Have you had a turf toe? Because we're going to get. He's a doctor. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah. He's also
I've had turf toe. Hashtag played the game. I've had turf toe.
The man who brought you McVay and LaFleur are friends, and therefore one will take it easier on the other, is going to bring us injury analysis on turf toe today.
But he's actually had the turf toe as well, so personal experience. I'm all for that. Look, everyone's been focusing on the concussion stuff, but the turf toe, I think, has the bigger chance of actually impacting his play. Remember last year where Mahomes had an ankle injury, had a 5-6 game stretch where he was just okay to better than okay, which is still pretty good. But that, I think, is the kind of player you might end up getting this week. Nobody has more big-time throws outside of structure than Patrick Mahomes. Can he still get that done? And if not, does that give that Buffalo defense a boost this week?
I think there's a little bit of a difference between the injury last year and the injury this year, in the sense that he got injured in week 1. It was an ankle, and it was a high ankle, which I think is more prohibitive to running because it's kind of like a lower leg injury.
Doctor.
Yeah, thank you. But the other thing is,
get a chart up here? Are we going to get a?
and this is an important thing. He had the entire season to have to preserve that last year. Whereas right now, the most games he's going to play the rest of the season is 2. And the turf toe, again, the turf toe is one of those where it doesn't get much worse after you have it. You sort of have to play through it and then evaluate it at the end of the year. So to me, he's not a fast runner. He's like a shifty, he runs as fast as he needs to in the scramble game. So I don't think this will impact him as much as some people think.
I'm here for this doctoral analysis here. The fastness with which he runs. Mike, is the speed of Mahomes dictating your pick here?
No, it's not. But I think there are the two biggest mismatches in this game are dictating my pick here, and they both favor Kansas City in my opinion. One is Tyreek Hill against a secondary that is decidedly not that fast. Tre'Davious White's the only guy in that secondary that ran a sub 4.5 coming out of college. It is just they play a lot of off zone, and so they might cap some big plays, but they're going to leave some big windows open down the football field because they're going to be worried about that speed. And then the other one is the biggest one. It's Chris Jones against the guard position for the Buffalo Bills, the 4th lowest pass blocking unit at the guard position in the NFL this season. Chris Jones, career year so far, 92.9 pass rush.
Well, and that's the difference between the front 7 of the two teams, which they're not great for either team, but the one elite football player in the front 7 of either team is Chris Jones, who, even though he doesn't have the sack totals this year, his pressure numbers are extremely good. And Mike, you bring up not allowing the big play, but it's going to come at the expense of something, and that's Travis Kelce, right? Travis Kelce, twice as much WAR as any other tight end in the entire league. And when they couldn't, like last time they played, we lauded their, allowing the Chiefs to run the football, allowing them. And what they did not stop Travis Kelce. I mean, he had 2 touchdowns, he had 95, he had 67 yards or something like that, and they tried like basically every single person on their defense on him, and they all failed. Like Poyer gave up a touchdown, Tremaine Edmonds gave up a touchdown, and none of these guys have really, with the exception of Poyer this season, been good at covering tight ends. All of them, except for Poyer, under a 60 grade when covering tight ends.
Or just Tyreek Hill from the slot underneath. We're so focused on what Tyreek Hill can do over the top as a deep threat, but look at the last play from last week. If that's all Tyreek Hill ran, the Cole Beasley route tree, there would never be a guy within 5 yards of him. He is absurdly good at getting instant separation underneath, and if you're going to back everybody else off to prevent the deep shot, he can kill you there as well.
You mentioned something about Tyreek Hill from the slot. This is since week 14. He's played 106 snaps, run 106 routes from the slot, 50 from out wide. The way that they use Tyreek Hill, people think of him as a wide receiver, number 1 guy, so therefore he's going to be out wide. That's not the case at all. We saw it in that last game where he was in the slot, but he still got depth. He got deep down the field. He got on the other side of the field, and they had no idea what to do with that. The interesting thing will be the Bills in week 6 very much played off. They played a lot of too high, many light boxes. They allowed them to run, and they held Kansas City to 26 points.
Yeah.
If you're the Bills and you say, I'm going to hold them to 26 points, you feel really good about your chances, don't you?
Well, and the Chiefs were something like, 8 of 12 or something like that in their first 12 third down. They were very efficient on third down and in the red zone, which I think will really help them. Even one of their touchdowns was a 4th down run by Darrell Williams against a lighter box, which, again, plays to the point of, okay, if you just make the Kansas City Chiefs convert third downs, they're better than anybody, right, as far as their skill set and everything. But it's still a good gamble to make in the NFL as opposed to allowing the 60, 70-yard touchdowns, obviously, on early downs.
And don't you think, so you're taking Buffalo, and I wonder if this is kind of the matchup that dictates that, is if you're thinking about a lot of third downs for the Chiefs, if Mahomes' turf toe is going to show up, you want to condense it to a few plays that are high leverage.
Yeah, so I know Buffalo lost the first game, but I think it was the right game plan, which is they just invited Kansas City to run, and the Chiefs accepted the invitation. They ran 39 times. Not one of those runs was against an 8-man box. More than half of them was against a 6 or lighter man box. They just backed everybody else off and said, run the ball, because while you're doing that, you're not hitting Tyreek Hill deep over the top for a 70-yard touchdown.
Against Tre'Davious White.
Exactly. So, I do think that that's true. I don't think that Mahomes' turf toe is going to show up with him running around and making crazy plays. I think it's going to show up where he's just not going to be quite as accurate as he usually is, because every time he sticks that foot in the ground, there's going to be a shooting pain through his leg. So he's going to miss a few of those throws that you've put him in a tough situation because you ran the ball on 1st and 2nd down.
Do you think, though, that affects this offense less than any other offense in the NFL because of the separation? The Bills get great separation on the outside for sure, and that's why Allen has emerged into this conversation, right, as being a player who can go toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes. But the Chiefs offense, whether it be Kelce or Hill, or even, it sounds like Watkins isn't going to play, but the Hardmans of the world have been pretty good at this. They don't rely on contested catches. They don't rely on Mahomes throwing perfect Aaron Rodgers type back shoulder throws. They feast on separation, and to me, you might get a little less yak because he's not as accurate. But I don't know if you're going to see this drastic drop. I think we're overreacting a little bit to a couple throws in that Cleveland game where he had just suffered the injury. I think that the Kansas City offense does offer a lot of margin for error for the quarterback.
Let's talk a little bit about the Bills here, because, Mike, you bring up the advantages that Kansas City has from a skill position, and obviously the Bills, I think, noticed that, and that was their Week 6 game plan. It was like, okay, well, Tyreek Hill could cook anybody. Let's play back and make sure that we're giving up stuff shorter. The reason they weren't able to capitalize was that Josh Allen did not come through. Started the game, I think, was 4 for 13, 0 for 4, missed Beasley right off the bat, missed Diggs a couple of times. Does that worry you at all, or are you wiping that clean?
I do think the roller coaster-esque nature of Josh Allen is still a worry. I still trust Patrick Mahomes, even with the turf toe, to come out and play a better game than I do Josh Allen. But I think you'll see better than that first week we saw from Josh Allen, because while Kansas City Chiefs are kind of underrated in the secondary, they do have some guys who have played well. Rashad Fenton, L'Jarius Sneed. there's still a little smoke and mirrors in terms of how effectively they have played. They rely a lot on the fact that they know the other teams. They get them in a situation where they know they're going to have to pass, and that's when they have success. So I still give the sort of advantage if we're talking about, are they going to put up points? I do think the Bills will put up points. Stephon Diggs, John Brown, and Cole Beasley, those are mismatches against anyone.
So anyone that can match up with Diggs for the Chiefs?
No, not consistently. They're going to have to probably put more resources against him, doubles and whatnot.
Which they do, right? Like, I think as a defense, they cover wide receivers as a unit probably better than almost anybody. And where they've had trouble this year defensively was against, I think, elite tight ends. Darren Waller gave them a lot of trouble. I think that Matthew covers up a multitude of sins there. Snead is, a very good rookie. And their corners, they're not fast. They're not, I don't think they're great cover men, but they don't put them in positions to cover that much. And, I do think Buffalo, though, the one thing they do have is just really good depth of the wide receiver position. Yeah. One thing to look at, though, Brown's coming off of an injury. Last week was probably the first time he played well since being hurt. And Gabriel Davis is questionable for this game with an injury. He's been kind of that, sideline guy who's like the afterthought that can kind of kill you, especially in the red zone. I don't think Buffalo has that athletic tight end to really go after the Chiefs linebackers and Daniel Sorensen the way that some of these other offenses have.
You are, as predicted, not taking a side. You're taking the over 54. Are there any other bets that you like, either first half, team totals, anything like that comes to mind?
I have a little bit of Allen under 305.5 as a prop. I think they can be efficient on offense without going over that number. The Chiefs are one of those teams, again, I don't think they're brilliant on defense, but every game it seems like you look up and you're like, oh, they only gave up 17 to a decent Browns offense. They only gave up 14 to a decent Atlanta offense. Sure. And like all that kind of stuff. To me, I think Allen, I think there's a way in which Allen goes under his yardage prop and Stephon Diggs goes over the 7.5 receptions prop because, again, they're going to try to feed their best player, but maybe at the expense of being uber, explosive on offense.
Bills +3. Mm-hmm. Biggest non-quarterback reason why?
There is no non-quarterback reason why. It is literally the Patrick Mahomes injury and the fact that I'm buying into the idea that Josh Allen.
So you are saying the difference between Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen is not 3 points. It's less than 3 points.
A hobbled Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen.
We've heard from the doctor.
Yes.
Next year we're going to invest in one of those really high, quality 3D body imaging.
Just use the light to put out the X-ray.
I don't think it's a terrible pick in the sense that there's a lot of people who have long-term exposure on the Chiefs as far as winning the AFC and winning the Super Bowl at prices that would make betting Buffalo +3 for that middle. Given the tail risk that is Mahomes, that he could just literally get injured in the first quarter of the game. They're not a team, I think Cleveland for a quarter and a half, you can beat that team with Chad Henne. I don't think you can beat Buffalo for anything more than 5 minutes with Chad Henne. So that's not a terrible, you're just saying look, there's uncertainty about Mahomes, and I think that's warranted. The only reason that pushes me a little bit away from that is the fact that, once Buffalo's a great team, great coach, great organization, but where are they better than Kansas City? That's the question, because that's really what Buffalo's ridden the entire season is they're extremely smart. They got an up-and-coming quarterback who can throw the ball anywhere. They got a good defense with a solid scheme, and they have a great head coach. Kansas City has all of those, and in some ways they're a little bit better in some of those.
Yeah, it's coming down to Mahomes' toe injury versus Josh Allen dealing with a pressure that he has never had before. You are rolling with the Mahomes toe injury.
Yeah, I'm going to go Mahomes toe injury. I think.
Do you have first-hand experience?
I do not. No,
okay.
I haven't
never
actually
had
been that injured. Just ankle is my life.
Okay.
But I think Eric spelled it out perfectly there in terms of very similarly built strengths, weaknesses-wise, but Casey is just better kind of at what they do best.
It's like the Spider-Man meme, except the Bills Spider-Man's a little tattered, a little banged up. Doesn't quite have the suit.
Buffalo deserves to be in this football game. I don't think any sort of handicap that involves, hey, I like the Chiefs, is not trying to poo-poo the Buffalo Bills. They have improved probably as a franchise better than any team in the NFL this year. They belong here.
Is Buffalo the third or fourth best team left?
Third.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll talk about this in the next game. There's actually a question mark as to whether Tampa fundamentally won that game last week as far as what they relied on to get here.
We will get into that. I do. You thought we were going to go to the next game without hitting on some props, you're crazy. I do want to tell you, though, real quick about an opportunity that you want to take advantage of. A lot of people last night got suckered into one of the biggest sucker bets of all time, which is Conor McGregor against Dustin Poirier. He got knocked the F out. But don't worry, got your back here. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook. Use the promo code PFF when you sign up. Maybe you need to create an alternate email because you got hooked into the Conor thing. It's possible. It's doable. You can do it. Promo code PFF. 100-to-1 odds on any quarterback scoring a rushing or receiving touchdown. You got some mobility in game 2 with Mahomes and Allen. And then you've got Tom Brady, little QB sneak action. 100-to-1 odds. Bet $1, win 100, and then that'll carry you through into the Super Bowl. DraftKings Sportsbook, promo code PFF when you sign up. All right, I got 4 props for this game that I really like. Josh Allen, over 2.5 passing touchdowns. It's plus 140, means you bet 100, you win 140. I liked Eric, under 305. That doesn't mean they won't still be efficient. They're going to need to throw the ball and throw it often, because have you heard of a running back other than Josh Allen on the Buffalo Bills? No, you have not. Stephon Diggs, over 7.5 receptions. Why? Who's covering Stephon Diggs? No one on the Kansas City Chiefs. John Brown, under 4.5 receptions. Why? Because they're going to feed the ball to Stephon Diggs. And then last but not least, a little special here for you. Dawson Knox, over 23.5 receiving yards. Why? Because his name is Dawson freaking Knox. And if you're going to bet on a name to step up on this weekend, it's a guy named Dawson Knox. Go to the PFF props tool and get all of the others that we like with the PFF Elite subscription. Alrighty, let's move on. We went from 20-something quarterbacks that move around and do things outside of structure like you wouldn't believe, to a 44-year-old quarterback, almost 44-year-old quarterback who sits in the pocket, and a 37-year-old quarterback who's playing like he's 27.
Spry.
In Aaron Rodgers, yep. And the Packers at home, a 3-point favorite. This has bounced around a little bit. It was 3.5. It's now 3. Total of 53. This has gone up. I'm the proud owner of a 50.5 over ticket. 29 degrees, cloudy, possible snow. We expect the snow to stop by game time. Just under 10-mile-an-hour winds. I'm going to start with the man that was supposed to go to this game. It didn't happen. Look, Tampa's going to be a little warmer, okay? So if you can get there, you can make it happen. The question for you is this the biggest emotional hedge of all time with your pick?
Yes. And there are valid reasons. I mean, Tampa Bay handled them early in the year. And I think if you just look at the rosters and evaluate each roster, Tampa Bay is the more complete team. They do not have a lot of holes. There are not a lot of ways to attack that you know are going to work attacking them. Green Bay has the more elite, high-end players. They have a guy, maybe the best cornerback in the NFL, quarterback, wide receiver, one of the best nose tackles. Like, they have high-end talent that they've gotten by on, but there are ways to attack and beat this team still. They're not a complete roster. And that's why I think 3.5 points, when I have to give up a full field goal, it's a lot.
Do you think that injuries and things like that are chipping away at that veneer, though? Because Antonio Brown, right, takes away the third wide receiver, who's actually been their second most valuable wide receiver this year.
You hate to see it happen
in terms of PFF WAR. And obviously Antoine Winfield's another one where you take away a little bit of that middle of the field stuff. They were already like the narrative difference between the narrative and reality on a player like Devin White is pretty stark, right? I think he's a talented football player. And he's great at blitzing. He's great at making stops in the run behind the line of scrimmage. But you put him in coverage, and he's kind of a nightmare for the defense. And so when you look at Tanyan, you look at Williams, Jones, and even Dillon out of the backfield, like that's a mismatch for Green Bay. And Lazard. And so when I look at this, I agree that like they probably have more players who we call above average. Packers have the most valuable center, safety, cornerback, wide receiver, and quarterback in the entire league. But I also think they do a pretty good job. Like Pettin gets a lot of crap for this, but they do a pretty good job of hiding some of their weaknesses on the other side of the ball. And Rodgers, obviously, force multiplier on the offensive side.
They're the only team, we'll get to you in a sec, Sam, they're the only team with 3 number 1 graded players, one at corner, one at receiver, and one at quarterback that we've had in PFF's grading history.
And that was the point I was going to make, is that you're right that Tampa Bay is probably better across the board as a baseline, but Green Bay, all the players you listed are in really important positions, and that's kind of relevant, right? That if you're going to be good in specific areas, be good at the single most important positions you're going to find. To me, the really interesting thing about this game is, like the other one, is that we've already seen it, right? And it was such a dramatic result that Tampa Bay just stomped Green Bay. But even at the time, it felt like a weird game, right? Aaron Rodgers was murdered by the blitz, and that doesn't usually happen. Even including that game this season, Rodgers has been the #1 graded quarterback in the NFL against the blitz. You take out that game, it's not even close. Like, he's miles better than anybody else.
That game was so interesting because, and I rewatched them, both these games, I rewatched just to kind of see if I could tear myself away from those narratives. And that game was so interesting because the Green Bay Packers come out and they just roll down the field. There wasn't a Tampa Bay Buck in the state of Florida relative to where Devonte Adams was. He was wide open the whole way down. They score a touchdown. They end up going up 10-0. And then the pick six happens.
Yep.
Devonte Adams drops a pass that's intercepted. And from that point on, the Green Bay Packers did not have a quick passing game. Everything was down the football field. And you mentioned the blitz. They blitzed Aaron Rodgers more than any team has blitzed him. He was sacked. He took 3 sacks against the blitz in that game. He's been blitzed 185 times. Only one other time did he take a sack. So the fact that they got them in that game, they clearly adjusted from then on. And the quick passing game was something that they attacked teams with. So if I'm looking at that game, to me, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Just like the Tampa Bay Bucks getting shut out by the New Orleans Saints.
The narrative is going to be for the second consecutive year, the Packers in the NFC title game against a team that blew them out in the first matchup in the regular season.
Right.
And last year, San Francisco rolled them again in the playoffs.
But the difference, I think, is that the 49ers could repeat what they did.
Exactly.
Right? It was still there. The reasons they won the first time were going to be the reasons they won the second time. The reasons Tampa Bay won this game, I don't think will hold up if the same thing happens.
Exactly.
Wouldn't you say that's exactly what happened against New Orleans, though? Like, did they win that? Did the Tampa Bay Bucks win that game legitimately, or was there some flukiness?
I don't think so. I mean, Brady didn't play terrific. Brady didn't play terrific in that game. The receivers have really let him down the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. Specifically, Godwin with 6 drops over the course of the first 2 weeks. Mike Evans was shut down by Marshawn Lattimore.
Again.
Now Jair Alexander doesn't travel, as Mike told me earlier, but they still you're down one of those elite receivers, so you can be depending upon Scotty Miller's, Tyler Johnson's of the world, and then Gronk and Brait. I don't know. When you talk about San Francisco versus Green Bay last year, it was a repeatable thing, and even in the regular season, San Francisco did some things in that game that kept Green Bay in that game, and they still couldn't do anything and got blown out. Tampa had some fluky plays to get out ahead of Green Bay. And that game was sort of like a quarter and a half worth of data, basically, for us. To me, I think this is one where Green Bay is going to show that they are clearly the better team.
What does Green Bay have to do here? Do they have to get out to a lead? Because they haven't beaten a team coming from behind. They were behind Tampa Bay. They couldn't come back. Do they need a lead in order to win this game?
I think so, yeah, because I do think that kind of their tricks and how they make up for the fact that they just have real one receiving weapon offensively that can get open on their own is via the play action game, is via stuff that doesn't really work necessarily in a 2-minute offense when team know you're going to have to pass. I think that's the biggest problem that Green Bay is going to face in this game is that obvious passing situations. What are they going to do with Allen Lazard and Marquez Valdes-Scantling? Because they did nothing the first time around. They have 3 cornerbacks, the Tampa Bay Bucks do, that are capable of playing man coverage. How are you going to get them out of man coverage? You can do that in early downs. You're not going to be able to do that in third downs.
Statistically, George, you'll find it's very difficult to win the game at the end of it if you don't have the lead.
If you're losing, yes, that's what I found.
Unless you're Kansas City's the only team.
Okay, so let me ask you this, Eric. So let's say, given that, and we've talked about this a couple of times as well, Green Bay has never played well from behind. So if they get out, let's say they get out to a lead, how would you attack that from a live betting perspective?
If Green Bay got out to a lead? We have so much Green Bay exposure.
I'm not talking about you and I. I'm talking about, for once, the person out there watching that does not have 850 bets.
I would leave the game alone. I'd let it ride. If Tampa Bay got out from behind, I would just leave it. I don't think Tampa, I don't think Brady.
You think Tampa is a team capable of coming back
against some teams? They had the comeback against the Chargers, but everybody comes back against the Chargers. Can Brady, when another team pushes the ball down the field, you have to push the ball down the field. I think the issue with Green Bay in such a situation is they don't have the weapons. For Tampa, aside from not having Antonio Brown there, it's also going to be what you kind of saw against the Rams, where the thing that makes that offense good is the multiplicity of underneath and over the top routes. But when you take away the underneath stuff, Yeah, Brady might not be he's basically played from ahead over the past 5-6 weeks, other than the Atlanta game. But again, Atlanta's the Chargers.
Because I was going to make the case, and I'm curious what you guys think about this. Okay, let's say Green Bay gets out to a 10, 14-point lead. That's great for Tom Brady and the Bucs. Why? Because then Bruce Arians can go take what his game plan was. You can't probably burn it because it's a little cold there. Freeze it and put it away. And let Tom Brady throw the freaking football. They ran the ball on 30 of 51 early downs against New Orleans. If it weren't for Drew Brees throwing them the ball and Jared Cook being the softest tight end we've seen, they're losing that game. But Tom Brady has been the second highest graded quarterback this season for a reason.
Yeah.
You want him in a script where he has to throw the ball.
But they were punting. They were punting on short yardage situations. The game script last week didn't favor Tampa until the third or fourth quarter. Bruce was the same guy the whole game, even though they were being handled. I agree that if you were the coach of Tampa Bay, it would be a decent bet as far as
But you don't have Drew Brees on the other side. Rest in peace, Drew Brees. But that's Aaron Rodgers' arm isn't going to fall off in the middle of this game.
But I don't think Bruce's decision-making process is as complicated as
what process?
That's what I'm saying. I don't think he's saying, hey, last week we could slow play it and make Drew Brees make a mistake, and this week Rodgers is on the other side and we have no freaking chance unless we throw.
He was setting up the pass.
I think he's going to sit there and say, look, we're down by 14 because we haven't established the run yet. We're not tough. And he's going to try to get that secondary trophy now that he knows he's not going to get the Lombardi. And so he's going to run the ball and be like, well, at least we came out of there tough and lost by 10 and made it respectable.
There's a few things about that, though, right? Objectively, running the ball on 1st and 10 is just a bad idea across the board, right? But if there's one offense where it doesn't hurt as much as other offenses, I think it is this Bruce Arians Tampa Bay offense, because the whole thing is designed around these long pass attempts anyway, the highest average depth of target in the NFL, and Tom Brady is the best graded quarterback on 3rd and long in the NFL. Now that isn't sustainable, but it's probably more sustainable for the Bucs than it is for any other random team dealing with that. Second, Brady has been... Yes, true. Secondly, Brady has been really good this season, but he has been notably worse when trailing. Significantly so. 7 points in terms of PFF grade. And now he has to deal with somebody called Aaron Stinney as his right guard. Now, he held up okay against the Saints, but Green Bay have a legit bevy of pass rushers up front, and can that happen 2 games in a row?
And did they hold up that well against the Saints? I don't think their first touchdown was because Sean Murphy Bunting, who I think also is the weakness of the Tampa Bay defense, by the way, ran a return back to the 3 and they got it in. And then they only had really one other drive in the entire first half where they moved the football. Now, granted, New Orleans is a great defense. It's same as Baltimore, where we're sort of dinging Buffalo for not having put up 30 points last week. Those are good defenses, so you grade on a curve a little bit there. But it wasn't as though Tampa was good offensively against the Saints. They were put in very, very nice positions by Tampa Bay and took advantage of them in the red zone. But is that going to? Is that transferable this week? I don't. They have great. Green Bay's got some pretty good players on their defense, and the Smiths, the Gary, and Kenny Clark as well in front 7. That's not a cakewalk at all for Brady, especially from behind, when we know that he's struggled, under pressure this year. When they play from ahead, they can sort of negotiate the pressure rate so that he is, better off. But from behind, you have less control over the game that way.
Interesting. No Dave Bakhtiari, obviously, has not hurt the Green Bay Packer offense yet. Shaq Barrett has a ton of pressures, has the most pressures in the NFL over the past 2 seasons. Is this a week that it shows up more? And if you're Green Bay, how do you counteract that?
I think it does, and I think JPP lines up more on the right side. He'll be the one going up against Billy Turner. It's going to be a mismatch. I think how Green Bay combats it and the game plan you have to have, max pro deep shots. You're not going to run the game plan we saw last week against the Rams, where it was underneath pretty much exclusively. And that's kind of how the Rams run their defense too, and where you want to attack them. But I think you're going to have to give these guys help and trust that you're going to go. You got defense without Antoine Winfield, backup safety. Mike Edwards probably stepping in there. You're going to have to go, and the big play is going to win you this game. Not necessarily, you're not going to be able to dink and dunk on them with the way the Bucs play their defense.
Is this what the Jaguars envisioned when they made Mercedes Lewis a first-round pick 14 years ago?
Basically,
Is this a Mercedes Lewis game?
I think so. It has to be. He's going to be outside of Billy Turner. You're going to have to keep him on that side a lot.
Is that Big Bob Tunyon?
Tunion's going to be the guy that's on the bootlegs and the crossers and stuff on play action. But Mercedes Lewis is going to be in that. He's going to be the 6th offensive lineman this week, and I mean, he's had a good career doing that, but when you have him on the field, it takes obviously away an eligible receiver.
The other star player for the Green Bay Packers that we've talked about who is playing is Jair Alexander. Alexander Island, Jair Island, however you want to talk about it, highest graded corner this season. But as you said, he doesn't move a ton. So Sam, if you're Tampa Bay, are you ignoring a trip to the island, or are you attacking Jair even though he's been so great this season?
I'm not scared of Jair Alexander if I'm opposing offense, right? I don't have to worry about it being bulletin board material. I don't have to play Jair Alexander in the next few weeks.
That's true.
So I'm good. I'm not terrified of Jair Alexander. So you're going to play what you see, but I don't think you're going to deliberately say, well, if Jair Alexander is covering my number one receiver, I'm just never looking in that direction. I think you play him honestly, knowing that he's a really talented receiver, a good player with the ball in the air, but he does have occasional lapses, and you can still put the ball in his coverage.
Luckily for Green Bay, I mean, Adrian Amos is one of the best free agent signings we've seen in the last 2 years. I mean, he's the highest graded safety, highest WAR going into the obviously the playoffs, and also Darnell Savage has had a pretty solid season as well as a pick from last year. So they're backed up pretty nicely there.
I have a bevy of props here. I'm going to remind you once again, if you didn't catch me the first time, go to DraftKings Sportsbook, use the promo code PFF when you sign up, and you will get an opportunity to bet on this prop. It's an incredible prop because we all love the quarterbacks. Any quarterback touchdown, rushing or receiving, you'll get 100 to 1 odds on, which means you put $1 down, you win $100. Will help you recover from the knockout punch many of you took betting Conor McGregor earlier this morning, whenever the hell it was that he went to sleep. I've got some for you here. Devonte Adams, over 8.5 receptions. He was kind of shut down in that first matchup. That was his first game coming off of an ankle injury. He is the best wide receiver in the NFL by a large margin. He eats in this game. Tom Brady, over 2.5 passing touchdowns. This is plus 155. Okay, so you bet 100, you win 155. I think they have to play from behind. I think he's got to throw. And are you really counting on Leonard Fournette in this game? Let's be serious. Tom Brady, over 284.5 passing yards. It's going to be cold. Tom Brady is not going to be hurt by the cold, and if it's snowing a little bit, that actually makes it harder on the defensive backs, as Davonte Adams has talked about many, many times. Aaron Rodgers, he let me down last week. He didn't need to rush the ball at all against the Los Angeles Rams. I think in this game, he might have to scamper dinger one time. He's going to have to scamper at least once, 10.5 rushing yards over for Aaron Rodgers. Now to the unders. These are all Bucs players. Leonard Fournette, under 3.5 receptions. He might have over 3.5 drops.
Playoff Lenny?
Yeah, I know. Cameron Brate, under 2.5 receptions. Why? This is Gronkowski time. He's been waiting all year for this game. And then Mike Evans, under 4.5 receptions. I do think Jair Alexander, while you might not be afraid of him, is really freaking good.
Can we talk for a second about where have we come in a year? 12 months ago, there was a Gronk party at South Beach.
That's true.
At the Super Bowl. And now, if somebody would have told you that Gronk was going to be playing in the NFC Championship game for a chance to
Gronk party in Green Bay.
First team in the history of the NFL to play a Super Bowl in their home stadium. I mean, we are the world.
Belichick was at the Gronk party too.
Yeah, he was.
I know. And Belichick isn't in the playoffs. Think about that, man.
Belichick will not be at this Gronk party.
No.
If there is one. This one is being played in very, very, very cold Lambeau Field. All right. We are about 15 or so minutes away from kickoff of Green Bay, Tampa Bay. Let's swing around the horn one last time. Start with you, Sam. Your pick on this game, biggest non-quarterback. I'm making you. Biggest non-quarterback reason why.
I don't think any of the things that happened last time for Tampa Bay to win that game comfortably repeat. And even if they do, I don't think it'll make the difference.
Yeah, my biggest non-quarterback, it's going to be Davonte Adams. He had 6 catches last time, despite the fact they couldn't do anything after quarter 2. You've seen his player prop. I got it at 7.5, minus 118. You're already talking about it at 8.5. It might close by the time, in 15 minutes from now, it might close at 9. He's the one, inside, outside, I think is going to be, the whole world, if they haven't noticed already, is going to find out that Davonte Adams is one of the top 10 players in all of football today.
I have the Bucs to cover, Packers to win, and it's because I think it's the Bucs to cover because I think their cornerback group and their ability to play press coverage, and they only have one guy to beat press coverage in Green Bay.
I'm rolling with the Packers. They're going to cover. The game's going to go over. The biggest reason why is Bruce Arians. God damn it, letting me down once again. It's okay. Packers and the Chiefs in the Super Bowl will be fantastic. I will not be complaining. I'll just be sad I'm not in Tampa for that game. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. A couple of notes here. During the game, if you do not have a PFF subscription, you will not be able to monitor the props for the next game. So you want to go get one right now. The DraftKings QB special prop with promo code PFF gives you 101 odds any quarterback with a rushing or receiving touchdown. And last note for you, after the games, come hang out with us. We'll be in this very studio to talk about the Super Bowl matchup, what we saw in the games today with a couple of very special guests. And depending on how the Chiefs play, Eric Eager in different levels of disheveled. The doctor. We'll be talking about turf toe and a whole lot more after all of those games. Thanks for hanging out with us. Enjoy these games. We'll see y'all tonight.